What if one of the biggest royal controversies people still argue about today was never actually proven? Not once. Not by a single credible source. 7 years after the rumors first surfaced, millions of people around the world are still asking the same question. What really happened between Prince William and Rose Hanbury? Was there ever any real evidence, or did social media take a handful of vague claims and turn them into one of the biggest royal stories of the decade? In this video, we're breaking down the complete timeline from where the rumors began to why they resurfaced during Kate Middleton's public absence to what changed after her cancer diagnosis. We're separating what was actually reported from what the internet simply assumed. And stay until the end, because once you see this timeline laid out in full, in order, you may look at this entire story very differently than you did 5 minutes ago. But before we get to that, we need to go back to where everything first began. Here's what makes this story different from most celebrity rumors. Most gossip has a shelf life. It spikes, it fades, and within a few months, nobody remembers it. This one didn't fade. It kept resurfacing again and again at moments that had nothing to do with the original claim. That's not normal, and it tells you something important before we even get into the details. This isn't really a story about two people. It's a story about what happens when a rumor never gets a clean ending. When something is proven true, the conversation eventually settles. When something is proven false, it also settles, just in the other direction. But when a claim is never confirmed and never fully denied with hard evidence, it doesn't die. It just sits there, and people fill that empty space with theories, screenshots, and old photos pulled out of context. That gap is exactly where this story has lived for 7 years. To understand why it got so big in the first place, we have to go back to 2019. At that point, Prince William and Kate Middleton were already among the most photographed people on Earth. Every appearance, every outfit, every small gesture was picked apart by royal watchers and tabloids across the globe. That level of attention meant any hint of trouble, real or imagined, was always going to explode. Rose Hanbury is a Marianess who had known William and Kate for years through overlapping social circles in Norfolk, the kind of world where the same faces keep showing up at the same country estates, hunting weekends, and charity events. That shared social world is the simplest explanation for why their names kept appearing near each other in photographs and event listings, but it's also exactly the kind of proximity that rumor mills love to run with. The first reports came from British tabloids, some of which have a long and complicated history with royal coverage. These early stories were vague, built on unnamed sources and secondhand claims rather than anything documented. From there, online forums and social media took over, stitching together fragments, old photos, and appearance records into elaborate theories that went far beyond what the original reporting had actually said. And here's the distinction that matters for this entire video, so keep this in mind because it becomes very important later. There is a real difference between what tabloids speculated, what social media assumed, and what was ever independently verified by serious mainstream reporting. Those three things get blended together constantly online, but they are not the same, and mixing them up is exactly how a rumor starts to feel like an established fact, even when it never was one. But there was one major problem that a lot of people completely overlook. Let's talk about the missing evidence, because this is the part most retellings of this story conveniently skip. Strip away the speculation and look at what was actually claimed, and the picture gets a lot thinner than most people assume. There were no verified photographs showing anything improper, no confirmed statements from anyone involved. What existed was a pile of secondhand claims, anonymous sourcing, and a lot of confident interpretation layered on top of fairly ordinary social interaction. This matters because major news organizations, the ones with legal teams and editorial standards to protect, treated this story with a level of caution that stood in sharp contrast to how it exploded on social media. Most large outlets in the UK and internationally avoided repeating the specific allegations directly, and some avoided the story almost entirely. That wasn't an accident. Reporting unverified claims about private individuals carries serious legal risk, especially under UK defamation law, which is far stricter than in many other countries. When a story is everywhere online but strangely absent from cautious, legally vetted reporting, that gap tells you something on its own. So what did people actually have? Mostly pattern recognition, photos of Rose Hanbury at events William also attended, mentions of reduced contact between the two families after a certain point, old interviews reread with brand new suspicion. None of that is proof of anything. It's circumstantial at best, and in a lot of cases, it's simply two people who existed in the same social world for years before any rumor ever started. But the absence of hard evidence didn't slow the theories down. If anything, the mystery made people more curious, not less. Then something completely unrelated happened, and it reignited the entire controversy from a totally different angle. That event was Kate Middleton's extended absence from public life. In early 2024, Kate stepped back from public engagements following abdominal surgery, and the palace's communications during that stretch were noticeably sparse compared to the steady stream of updates the public was used to. For weeks, there was almost no official information, and that silence did exactly what silence always does online. It got filled fast and messily with theories. Social media users started connecting Kate's absence to the years-old Rose Hanbury rumors, even though the two stories had no actual link beyond timing and speculation. Hashtags trended, amateur investigators picked apart official photographs looking for signs of manipulation. Entire channels sprang up dedicated purely to guessing what was happening behind palace walls, and here's the part most videos never mention. The algorithms powering these platforms are built to reward exactly this kind of content, the kind rooted in unresolved mystery and strong emotional reactions, so the wildest theories often traveled further and faster than any calm explanation ever could. This pattern is worth sitting with for a second because it explains a lot about why this story specifically refuses to die. Old rumors don't need new evidence to come back, they just need a moment of uncertainty somewhere else, and people will draw the connection themselves whether it's actually there or not. Kate's absence had nothing to do with William and Rose Hanbury directly, but the emotional shape of the two stories, secrecy, speculation, and information vacuum was similar enough that online communities merged them into one continuous narrative. Then came an announcement that changed the public conversation almost overnight. In March 2024, Kate Middleton released a personal video revealing she had been diagnosed with cancer and was undergoing preventative chemotherapy. The announcement landed with enormous global impact, and within hours, the entire tone of the online conversation shifted. People who had spent weeks fueling speculation faced serious backlash, and several public figures publicly apologized for amplifying baseless theories during her absence. Messages of support poured in from around the world, and for a period of time, the appetite for gossip-driven theorizing noticeably cooled. This moment mattered because it forced a lot of people to confront how far speculation had actually gone, built on nothing more than silence and assumption. It didn't erase the earlier Rose Hanbury rumors from public memory, but it did shift the emotional context around the royal family from suspicion toward sympathy, at least for a while. But even after that shift, one important question still remained. What about Rose Hanbury herself? For years, through repeated waves of speculation, she stayed almost entirely silent in public. Some read that silence as suspicious. Others saw it as exactly what a private individual would do when trying not to add fuel to a fire she never started. But at a certain point, her legal representatives did step in. Statements were issued through lawyers explicitly denying any affair with Prince William, and in some cases, formal complaints were filed with press regulators over specific claims that crossed the line from vague implication into direct allegation. Legal denials carry more weight than people online often give them credit for. Issuing a statement through solicitors is a formal, documented position, one that carries real legal risk on both sides if it's ignored. It's a very different thing from simply staying quiet, and yet despite the denial, the rumors kept circulating online almost completely unaffected. Old threads got reposted as if they were breaking news. For a huge portion of the internet, a legal denial simply wasn't enough to close the book. So why do millions of people still believe this story even now, with no public evidence and an explicit denial sitting on record? Part of the answer is confirmation bias. Once someone believes a theory, they notice anything that fits it and dismiss anything that doesn't, which means a denial can actually get reinterpreted as exactly what a guilty party would say. Part of it is viral culture itself. Content that hints at scandal spreads dramatically faster than content that says nothing happened here. Add in decades of built-in public fascination with the royal family and online echo chambers where the same small pool of claims keeps getting recycled as if it's new, and you get a story with an engine that basically runs itself. Corrections rarely travel as far or as fast as the original claim did, so the version most people remember is the dramatic one, not the accurate one. But that's only half the story, because the media's role in all of this wasn't uniform either, and it's worth breaking down exactly how differently each corner of the media handled it. Legally cautious outlets kept their distance from the specific allegations almost entirely. Tabloids operating with a different appetite for risk sometimes ran stories that implied far more than they actually stated. Independent commentators and online influencers filled in everything else, often with none of the scrutiny a professional newsroom would apply before publishing. Fact-checking efforts existed, but like most viral stories, corrections landed with a fraction of the reach of the original claims. Different platforms handled the same underlying story in completely different ways, and that's a huge part of why public understanding of it stayed so fractured for so long. Now let's put the whole timeline together, start to finish, because seeing it laid out in order order is where this story actually starts to make sense. It starts in 2019 with the first vague tabloid reports and the online speculation that followed almost immediately. From there, the rumors settled into the background of royal discourse for years, occasionally resurfacing but never fully going away. Then in early 2024, Kate Middleton's public absence triggered a fresh wave of theories that pulled the old rumors right back to the surface. That was followed by her cancer diagnosis announcement, which shifted public opinion sharply towards sympathy almost overnight. Around that same period, Rose Hanbury's legal denial entered the public record. And yet, even after all of that, the rumors are still circulating online today, largely unchanged from where they started. So here's where that actually leaves us. This controversy became one of the biggest ongoing royal discussions on the internet, not because it was ever publicly proven, but because unanswered questions, aggressive social media speculation, and endless viral recycling kept it alive far longer than the evidence ever justified. As of today, no credible public evidence has confirmed any affair between Prince William and Rose Hanbury, and Rose Hanbury has denied the allegations directly through her lawyers. Those are the facts as they actually stand. In the end, maybe the biggest story here was never the rumor itself. Maybe it was how quickly the internet can turn speculation into something millions of people treat as established truth. The question isn't just what happened. It's why this story still captivates the world today, years later, with no more proof now than it had at the very beginning. If this timeline gave you a clearer picture of how this whole thing actually unfolded, tell me in the comments what surprised you the most. And if you want more fact-check breakdowns like this one, separating what's actually verified from what's just noise, subscribe because there's a lot more of this history still worth unpacking.